welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. This is the third episode of my Stash Tour series, and this one is my hand-dyed yarn, Moody Jewels. If this is the first video in the Stash Tour that you are watching, welcome. I am doing this video series in celebration of reaching 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. I asked what type of video you would like to see, and you voted for a Stash Tour. After trying to record this all in one go and not succeeding, I decided to break it up into 5 videos that I am releasing one after another in a 5-week stretch. And this is week 3. If you haven't watched the other 2 videos, I just want to give you a little reminder of what I'm going to be sharing in this video. Every time I show a yarn, I will give you as much information about the yarn that I have. If I have any patterns in mind to knit with the yarn, I will include a photo right here and talk a little bit about that. And if I have any fun stories to share about how the yarn came into my stash, I will also tell those stories. So let's get into some hand-dyed yarn that is either moody in color or is a jewel tone color. I wanted to start things off with a couple of gifted yarns. The first one being this one. This is a yarn that was gifted to me by one of my viewers as a wedding gift last year. And it is from what I think is a German brand called Das Mondschaft. And it is their Vega base, which is 70% alpaca, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And the color is Lothlorien. And as a Hobbit and Lord of the Rings fan, I love the color. And I can definitely see Lothlorien vibes because in the Lord of the Rings movies and books, Lothlorien is in a dark forest, so hence the really beautiful teal green, but also the elves are very magical and they have this special light, and it is incredibly soft. I think this is one of the softest yarns that I have ever felt. It's also incredibly thin. This is a lace weight yarn that is 800 meters per 100 grams. And when I held it closer, you probably noticed that I have actually wound this double. So even wound double, it's still quite thin. There's 2 strands together. They're about a light fingering when wound together. So I've got about 400 meters here. And my goal with this yarn is to make a neck scarf. I don't know which one, but I think I can get quite a nice amount of yardage out of this one. I'm leaning towards the espresso scarf because I think that this yarn will look really beautiful in those brioche stitches. And I think it'll be really nice and cozy against my neck, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't solidified which neck scarf pattern I'm going to do, but this is so soft. I have to make something that goes against my neck with this yarn. The person who gifted me this skein of yarn also gifted a mini skein to go with it, but I'm going to include that in my video that I talk all about my mini skeins. So I didn't include it with this one. The other yarns that are in this section that have been gifted to me are this pair of yarns. These were gifted to me by Alicia Plummer, the designer, as thanks for helping her sort out some issues that she had with her Bibliophile 2 sweater, which if you've been around my channel for a little while, you'll know that I tried to make earlier this year and it did not work out for me. She has written up the new instructions with the new numbers, and I helped her work out the sizing for at least the upper sizes like myself. I think the pattern is ready for testing soon. It might already be in testing at time of release of this video. I'm recording all of these videos in advance, so I don't actually know if it's ready to test at this time or not. I am going to be testing the Bibliophile 2 with the new numbers to hopefully get the fit that I was hoping for the first time I made the sweater. But she gifted me these yarns to thank me for my help. And this particular one is quite special because this is Alicia's hand-spun yarn. So I'll get it closer so you can see all of the beautiful color variations. And this one really reminds me of what I would call a cold Atlantic beach because you have so much beige. That would be the sand, but then you have this gorgeous like deep blue, almost navy, and then you have some orange. Sometimes there's brackish water, and I just think that it just looks like a beach to me. And She also sent me this lovely skein, which is from Sea Change Fibers by the Dye Project. And this is their Shoreline Sport, 325 yards per 100 grams, made up of 50% merino rambouillet, 25% silk, and 25% linen. And this color is Golden Bow. And it is just the most beautiful brassy brown. Like, it's got red squirrel vibes to it. And even though I don't know what fibers are in the handspun, I love these two yarns together, and I definitely want to use them together. I just don't know what yet. Probably some sort of a scarf or a cowl. I think that would be really nice, particularly because I don't need to worry about the drape of the project if I'm making an accessory versus trying to make a garment. And I just love these two colors together, so no idea what that pattern will be, but I know these yarns will be used together. The next yarns that I'm going to show you are all from the same dyer and base. These ones are Prairie Spun DK, spun and dyed by Brown Sheep Company, and they are 100% wool. They are 256 yards per 100 grams, and they all have different names on them, but I'm going to get them all mixed up. But I got them all from a local yarn store, and when I saw the array of yarns that were on display at this yarn store, these 4 yarns were in a basket with other colors, but I immediately felt like these 4 had to be together. And I just love the color variations. Like, they're not solid colors, they're very tonal. And I just love how these 4 colors look together. And I have a very particular pattern in mind for them. I would like to make the Dream Lake Shawl. And this has been on my queue, I think, for 6 years now. So I've had this yarn for about 6 years. I just haven't made that pattern because it's quite a complicated pattern. It has a lot of different stitch patterns and colorwork patterns. There's some brioche, there's some honeycomb brioche. There's a lot of really tricky knitting in that shawl. And I just haven't had a time where I have enough brain space to really sit down and work on that pattern. I have, however, done some drawing and sketching for that pattern because the size that I want to make with the amount of yarn that I have is technically a 5-color version, and I only have 4 colors. So I do need to play around with how I distribute my colors, and that's why I kind of sketched it out when I first got the idea for the pattern and wrote them all down. But of course, I just haven't had the time to do it, or I just haven't felt the nerve to do it and be very bold and very brave to do it. So one day I will, but that day is not yet today. I know I had all kinds of beautiful brights and neons to show you in the last episode of my stash tour, but I really feel like I have some beautiful moody colors as well. These ones are by Horde Yarn. They are her Fairy Tale DK weight base, which is 100% superwash merino wool, 230 yards per 100 grams, and the color is Twilight Path, which is this stunning tonal dark blue. So sorry for all the pet hair. I'm going to be apologizing for that in every single episode, but I have 3 cats and a dog. It's really hard to keep them away from things and to keep their hair off of things, but it is a really beautiful yarn, and I really love the color, especially the variation of color. I really feel like it gives depth and life to this color. I would like to make a cardigan with this yarn. I don't actually have a pattern in mind, and I would kind of need to flub things a bit, or either make a very fitted cardigan or a bit of a cropped cardigan in order to be able to get one with the yardage that I have, because I only have 5 skeins. I got this at a time when Tristan was having a sale on her yarn, all of her in-stock yarn, and there was only so much of this colorway. I originally bought it with some mustard yellow yarn, which I'm currently using for Pillar's Tank, and I was originally going to do a yellow and navy striped sweater, but then I changed my mind. It didn't really suit my idea for the yarn anymore, and when I had the opportunity to use the yellow by itself for the Pillar's Tank, I jumped at it. So this will be a cardigan one day. Don't know what kind, but I would love to have a navy cardigan. I know I would get so much wear out of that in my wardrobe. The next yarn that I have to show you is Goosey Fibers. This is her Goosey singles base, and the colorway is Standing Stones, based on Outlander. So this is her 100% superwash merino, but it is a single ply yarn, approximately 400 yards per 100 grams. And I have a bit of a story with this one. So first of all, I found Goosey Fibers either in like 2017 or 2018 when I was on Instagram, I think, and I had seen her post for an advent calendar that she was doing that year, which I did buy, and having zero chill, I opened it all up the day that it arrived. I did not do the day-to-day opening of the advent. I could not resist. I just opened every single box. It was really neat because it was very similar to the chocolate advents that you do need to open the perforated doors to get into, and then the yarn was curled up inside. So it really was a very fun present-like experience. I just wish I hadn't opened them all at once. And I got this in like early November, so I had no reason to open them all in one go, except for the fact that I had zero chill and could not wait to open them one by one. They were absolutely beautiful. I do have plans for that yarn, but I'll talk about that in my minis video because they're in that video. But I will credit Goosey Fibers with being my introduction to buying hand-dyed yarn from independent dyers online. Because before I found her, the only hand-dyed yarn that I had really encountered so far was from Hedgehog Fibers, which I talked about in my first hand-dyed yarns video. And, you know, at the time, duty charges weren't as bad when things came from the US to Canada. They have gotten worse and worse over the years, and my duty charges get out of control for yarn now. So I try not to buy from US dyers more than probably twice a year, just because it's so hard for the conversion rate and the added duty charges on top of that. But I bought this quite a few years ago. I bought it when she was having a sale on her in-stock yarn, and if I can find it, I'll put a picture of what the original color looked like, because this does not look like the color that I purchased based on. The original color was much more of like a rosy purple, kind of like a mauve color, and this one has so much blue. Like if I hold it close, you can see there is so much blue in this particular yarn. So I reached out to the owner and I didn't expect anything. I kind of hoped that maybe they would give me like a store credit to use at the future, maybe even a discount code for a future purchase. But no, she completely refunded me, which she did not need to do, and I was so appreciative of. But it was so kind of her, and it just meant that I totally respected her, and I just thought that was wonderful, wonderful customer service on her part. So this sat in my stash for a long time, and then I was browsing Knitpicks' website one time. That's one of my favorite commercial yarn companies to buy from, and they had this yarn, which is a loft, and it's the color Sydney Hand Paint, which they no longer carry. They used to have hand painted colors for their mohair. Now they just have the single colors, but the color of this is what I thought the Standing Stones yarn was going to look like when I got it. So I bought enough of this. At the time it was on sale because it was being discontinued, and I bought it to go with this yarn. And I'm going to make a diaphanous raglan with this yarn. So I really was intrigued by that particular pattern because for the body of the sweater, I would be using the merino singles held with the mohair, and I would get that beautiful gradation of color between the very purpley mohair and the more like bluey merino. So I would probably get more of the color that I was hoping to get from just this yarn. And then your sleeves would be only mohair. which I love that concept. I think it would be so beautiful and so ethereal. So I'm very excited to eventually make that sweater pattern. These next 2 yarns I've actually recently shown off in a Stash Spotlight section on my podcast episode. And they are Chromatic Yarns. These are Hannah's yarn. Hannah is the maker behind Chromatic Yarns. She also has a YouTube channel called The Corner of Craft, if you're interested in following her. And these are from her Legends and Lattes collection, which at the time that I recorded that podcast episode, I hadn't read the books. I'm currently reading Legends and Lattes, but I'm still really early into it. But these are her sturdy sock base, which is 75% blue-faced Leicester, 25% nylon. It is 467 yards per 100 grams. And this one is her fluffy lace base, which is 72% brushed Super Kid mohair, 28% mulberry silk, 460 yards per 100 grams. And this is the color Magical Flame. So let me hold a couple up so you can really see the richness of this green yarn. They are so beautiful. The colors are so rich. I really can't wait to wear this against my skin. I think it's going to look so gorgeous with my coloring. But I bought these to make Victoria Merchant Knits Belfort sweater, which is the same gauge as the Lento sweater, which is one of my favorite patterns, but is a different construction and a different look. So the Belfort sweater is a circular yoke featuring the most gorgeous lace pattern across the chest. And I think it's going to look so beautiful in this really rich green color. So I'm very excited to make that very soon. Don't know when. I would love to make it this year, but I have quite a few things that are either on my needles or that I want to get on my needles soon. So this might not be until 2025, but they are calling me very strongly. Also from the Legends and Lattes collection is Cinnamon Roll. And funny enough, this is the colorway that Hannah said was the least selling of that entire collection. And I have no idea why, because this is my favorite color from her Legends and Lattes collection. Especially on mohair. This color just sings. They are so beautiful and they look just like a cinnamon roll. All that ooey gooiness and the soft bread. I'm doing a very bad job of holding these up to show them. So these ones, I have the fluffy lace base again, but the sock one is not the same sock because I couldn't get the sturdy sock. It was sold out. Because I didn't buy these in the original pre-order, I got these in an overstock collection that she had when she was selling off the extras from that collection. So I just had to get whatever was available. And this one is Merino sock, which is 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, 437 yards per 100 grams. So I will say the merino sock is softer than the sturdy sock. It's because there is a smaller percentage of nylon. Also, it is merino versus blue-faced Leicester. I don't know sheep breeds all that well, so I don't actually know which ones are softer, but I do know that merino is talked about as the softest sheep breed. If you get into the science of it, you'll look at microns, and that determines like the staple length, the softness of the sheep's fleece. I don't know it that well. What I do know is, just going by feel, the merino sock feels softer than the sturdy sock. But these, I wasn't able to get 2 of a sock and 2 of a lace. So I can't do the Belfort or the Lento or any of the sweaters like that. The feather cardigan is another one that's similar, very thin yarn on a very large gauge. So with this one, I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to make the Plumatus blouse, which is a long sleeve blouse, but I'm going to crop it and make it a short sleeved blouse because I don't have enough yarn to make the full sleeve length. That pattern uses a sock weight yarn for the ribbing at the bottom, the little collar at the neck, and I think the cuffs of the sleeves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do short sleeves. I'm also going to play around with the ease so I don't have as much positive ease because, again, I don't have a lot of yarn to work with. And I think what I'm going to do is use the use the merino for the ribbing at the bottom, for the collar, and if I still have some left, I'll use it to make little tiny cuffs for my short sleeves, but if I don't, it's okay, I'll just make them fluttery sleeves. And I have one more yarn from Hannah. This one is not D&D themed or adjacent. This is Stardew Valley yarn. Stardew Valley is a video game. I'm not a gamer, so I don't play it, but my husband Doyle loves it. And when she shared this collection and showed off this color, which is Night Market, I loved the color, and I just thought that will be so much fun to make a sweater with. So this is again her sturdy sock base, which is the blue-faced Leicester and nylon combo. So you see it's this really bright, bold blue, but there are some really gorgeous speckles. There's some bright green, there's some bright yellow, some purple, some red, a little bit of burgundy and brown, and it just looks so beautiful. I also love the idea of having a deep blue V-neck sweater. So I have chosen the Thin Air sweater by Lily Kate Makes. Now that sweater technically uses a DK weight yarn, but it is a cashmere DK weight. And when I looked at the gauge of that sweater, it's actually closer to a fingering weight than a true DK. It certainly wasn't matched by the gauge of Hannah's DK weight yarn, and I knew I wanted this particular yarn to make that sweater. So I bought the sturdy sock base instead, and I went with this one because I think this will get me the right gauge. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. I can play around with the sizing to get a size that's going to fit me the way I want. That sweater is intended to have quite a lot of positive ease. So again, I can go down a size and work with a different gauge in order to get something that will fit me very well. For not being a gamer, I have a surprising amount of yarns dyed based on video games, because I also have Zelda yarn. This is yarn dyed by Craft Me Not Yarn Co., who is Sarah. She is a lovely person. I highly recommend you follow her. And this was from her first year of doing quarterly mystery clubs based on Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I learned some lessons buying these mystery skeins. First of all, I learned that living in Canada and ordering from a US dyer means that I will almost always be spoiled for what the colorway is unless I purposely avoid it, because my yarn takes longer to get to me. And that happened really badly with the second one because my address somehow got wiped off the label, and it took a lot longer for it to get to me than all of the other ones. The first, third, and fourth one, I wasn't spoiled for them unless somebody posted a story that showed it off without a black and white filter. So I was spoiled for the first one by someone else sharing the color in their story. The second one, I looked at the email that told you what the colorway was, because you would get the email, I'd say maybe 3 weeks after the yarns had been shipped out, so that everyone who is signed up on our newsletter list would see what the colors were. But I was not spoiled for the third one and the fourth one. So at least I got to see those ones brand new when they came to me. So the first one is Hues of Hyrule. And I got all of these on her Merino DK weight base, which is 100% superwash merino, 231 yards per 100 grams. And they were all dyed based on photos. So I'll go through each of the yarns and then I'll talk more about the photos. The second one is Korok Forest. So of course, lots of beautiful variegated greens. Or variegated greens, I should say. The third one is Taobab Grassland, which, if I remember from when this colorway came out, she highly recommended this one for baby knits because it's a really great neutral color. And then the last one, the fourth quarter, which is Temple of Time, and it's these gorgeous, gorgeous teal greens and blues and grays. So I'm undecided about what my favorite is. For me, I go back and forth between Korok Forest and Temple of Time. I think looking at them at this exact moment, Temple of Time is probably my favorite, but I do also really love the greens of Korok Forest. I'm learning as I get older that when I was younger, my favorite color was blue, but I think as I get older, my favorite color is really green. because there's so many different shades of green that I absolutely love. So getting back to the mystery skein aspect of this, when you bought each quarter, you only had an image to go off of what the color would look like. And Sarah did something different in her second year based on the experience of the first year of doing these quarterly clubs. Because when she did the quarterly clubs the first year, she had a sock set and the colorway on her other bases. And if you ordered the sock set, it was a different color than the regular base. So in her photos of her inspiration images, she had images that inspired the sock set color and images that inspired the regular colors. And a lot of us were confused by that because the colorways for the sock set were so different than the colorways for the regular one. And I think we thought that all of those pictures worked together to form the colorway. So I think a lot of us were quite surprised when this one arrived. So that was, I don't want to say it was a disappointment, but it was just, oh, okay, that's how this is going to work. So after that, after the first quarter and the confusion there, she started to have 2 mood boards for the rest of the quarters. So there was, for the Korok Forest, there was both a mood board of the moodier greens for the original base, and then there were the brighter greens that made up the sock set colors. Same with the third one and the fourth one. When she did her collection the second year, so season 2 of the Legend of Zelda quarter clubs, she ended up just using one overarching image that would be both the inspiration for the sock set and for the main bases. So she used collages for the first year, and I think the second year she would just use one image, and it was inspiration taken from that whole image. So what am I going to make with these, you wonder? I'm going to use them all together. When I bought them, the DKWay base, I thought for sure I'll use DK because I can just make a hat out of each colorway, and then I'll have 4 Zelda hats. But I've decided not to do that because since these colors came out, Amy Palco has released her Gala scarf, which looks super cozy, and I love that it is just a color blocked scarf, and I think it would look really great using all of these colors. But if you know the Gala scarf pattern, you know it is a 5 color pattern, not a 4 color pattern. When Sarah released the pre-order for all of the Zelda colors, year 1 and year 2, sock set colorways and regular colorways, I took the opportunity to buy a 5th colorway to go with this, along with some of the sock set colors that I couldn't get the first year. And I ended up purchasing, I think it's called Captured Memories. It's a pale pinkish oyster kind of base, and it has like a little bit of purple, a little bit of pink. I'll pop a picture right here so you can see what it looks like next to these colors because I think it blends really nicely. I did ask Sarah's advice which of the year 2 colorways would go best with the original 4, and that's the one that she recommended. And I'm really excited to put them all together. I have decided I'm going to start and end with Captured Memories because that way the 4 colors from the first year will be those big rhombus shaped blocks on the scarf, and the white can start and end the scarf. So I think that'll look really nice. I can tell right now I have a lot of sunlight coming on me. I am filming after work, so I am subject to the low sunlight of this time of day. But I'm on a bit of a tight recording schedule with these because I am trying to record them all in succession when I have the time for it so that I can release them all back to back. So I apologize if the lighting might not be perfect, but it's better than recording in darkness, which I encountered when I tried to record this yesterday. The next yarns that I'm going to show you were a lesson in humility for me about when it comes to ordering from a pre-order. These are my Sewrella yarns, which if you are into hand-dyed yarn, you'll know she's a pretty prolific yarn company. So I say she, but really it's a huge amount of people. The head person though is Ashley. And these are from her collaboration with Alexi of 2 of Wands for the Autumn in New York collection. And being a fan of When Harry Met Sally and You've Got Mail and all of those rom-coms from the late 80s, early 90s, I immediately fell in love with this entire collection. And I purchased a fair amount. It could be considered small to some. It could be considered large to others. Everything is subjective. But I ordered these 5 yarns plus another yarn that I'll show you afterwards because I fell in love with all of the colors. However, I fell in love with what the colors looked like on the screen. And this was a lesson in humility of remembering hand-dyed yarn is hand-dyed. It is made by one person or multiple people, and it is not a carbon copy of what you see in a picture. Sometimes what you get looks different than what you saw online. And that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. And the price was also a bit of a wake-up call for me. I do believe this is one of the more expensive orders of yarn that I've ever made. It's not the most expensive. I'll get to that one in a bit. But this is one of the more expensive ones that I got. And I do remember having huge sticker shock when I had to pay my duty charges for this. I was quite alarmed by how much the duty was. But I do have the yarn. I have not used it yet, but I'm going to talk about what I'm going to use it for. So, I ordered these 5 yarns in order to make a shawl. They are Soho, obviously dyed based on the neighborhood Soho in New York. There's the label with Alexi on it. These are all her DK weight base, which is 100% superwash merino wool, 231 yards per 100 grams. This one is Sweater Weather. Sweater Weather. I just had to do that one once. But this is possibly one of the most beautiful fall leaf colors. I think this one was the best-selling color from the entire collection. This one, which is Bistro. So this one's kind of similar to that navy blue Dragon Horde yarn that I showed earlier, but it's a bit lighter. It's more of like a grayish blue. This one is Brooklyn. It's the only variegated yarn that I bought from the collection. Otherwise, I went for all tonals. I loved the tonals. And then the last one, which is basically a bear yarn, is Townhouse. It's got slight variation between like undyed, beige, oyster, but it's essentially a bear yarn. I'm not bitter about paying a hand-dyed yarn price for basically a bear yarn. No, not at all. So I originally bought these at a time where I had just received some really difficult news and I was dealing with stuff that I choose not to talk about on the internet. But I was in a very sad place. And I bought this yarn as a way of cheering myself up, and I was going to work on Alexi Two of Wands coffee shop wrap, which I had originally bought the kit for that from Lion Brand. And even though the photo makes it look like it is like a white and orange or mustard yellow and a blue, what looks like blue in the photo is actually gray. And I was severely disappointed by that kit. So I thought I would use this pre-order that was designed with Alexi to make that shawl in the colorways that the pattern sample photo looks like to me. Minus the Brooklyn, which was kind of the odd one out because I didn't have another color from their tonal collection that would go with it. So I thought, well, for like the odd stripe here and there, maybe I'll do the variegated. And I still will probably do that. But I also feel that because this yarn was so expensive, I should make something a little fancier than just a basic shawl. So I thought maybe I'll use these to make the patchwork pullover by Claire Jackson, a perfectly knotted, designed for Sewrella. Not for this collection, for a different one of her collections, but that is a patchwork sweater. And I do have enough of these yarns to do the patchwork, I would just need to buy another color to be the main color to go with them. And I'm kind of at a loss as to what that main color would be that would look like it would go with these colors, but not impede their ability to stand out on their own. So I'm kind of at an impasse with these. That's why I haven't used these yarns yet. I'm not sure if I should just go with my original idea of doing the shawl and just say, well, doesn't matter how much I spent on it, I'm going to make the pattern that I want to make with it. Or do I try and make a fancy sweater and get something really fun and something that is a little more, work intensive out of these colors. So really not sure what I'm going to do. So that's why these are still in the stash. Like I said, the tonals were where it was at for this collection. This is Brick. It's still on the DK weight base, same as before. And this is, to me, one of the most beautiful brick red colors that I've ever seen. And I just thought, I have nothing like this in my wardrobe. I would love to have something in this color. And I bought this yarn intending to make the Peekaboo Maxi Skirt by Knititude. And I was all set to do that pattern until last fall when Rebecca Clove, the Crayabea, released the stick season sweater. And I immediately thought, this yarn has to be a stick season. This particular base I've seen on other people is really, really nice for texture. This particular color would be really good at making those textured stitches on the yoke really pop. And I just think it would be such a gorgeous, gorgeous sweater in this color. So I've decided that I'm going to make the stick season sweater with this yarn. And funny enough, I have the right amount of yarn for that pattern because apparently for my particular size, making the Peekaboo Maxi Skirt and the stick season sweater require about the same amount of yarn, which is kind of cool. Now we come to a section of my yarn stash that, if you know me well, you will have been expecting. This next chunk of yarn that I'm going to share with you is all of my Sarah J. Maas inspired yarn. Almost entirely ACOTAR. There's just one yarn that is not ACOTAR. Also, sorry if you hear any clicking in the background. Rue is walking around right now. He's looking out the window and then he's going back to his bed. So if you hear clicking, I do apologize. So let's start with the one non-ACOTAR yarn and move on from there. This one is Teeny Button Studios, who is Robin, based in New Orleans. This is her soft worsted base, which is 100% superwash merino, 218 yards per 100 grams. And it is in the color I Am Not Afraid. This is a highly variegated color. And this yarn is still wound up and will probably stay wound up for a very long time, if not always. Because this yarn is in my stash to tell me some yarns look better in a skein than they do knitted up. So this is from her Crescent City collection. And no, I don't actually like Crescent City, but I really loved the look of this yarn. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to take a chance. I will order this on mohair, and then I'll just get one worsted weight base, and I'll use that for a hat. And the mohair I will hold with a solid color yarn in order to sort of dial down this very intense variegatedness. So of course I know that mohair already is going to soften those color changes because it is a very fluffy yarn and it takes the dye very differently. But when I got the mohair, I caked it up and then I went to swatch with it with the plain burgundy red yarn that I was going to use it with. And I hated it. It was striped and I did not want a striped look. So I ended up undoing it. I did not make that project. I ended up gifting that yarn to my best friend who got into crochet, and that yarn actually matched really well with a yarn that she had, and she was able to make a really nice cowl with it, and she loves it. I kept the worsted though because I thought maybe one day I will make that hat that I said I was going to, but I also just really like the idea of keeping this in my stash to remind me some yarns don't have to be knitted up. Sometimes they just look pretty in the skein, and you should leave them that way. If you are a big ACOTAR fan and hand-dyed yarn fan, you probably already know what this yarn is. This is Explore Knits and Fibers to the Stars Who Listen. And this has got to be one of the most beautiful yarns I have ever purchased in my entire life. I bought it at the same time that I bought her companion color, which is Court of Dreams, which I used in my Estrella sweater, which is the sweater I am wearing in the opening credits of all of my videos here on YouTube. And these are quite possibly some of the yarns that I have fought the hardest to get. Because if you have purchased yarn from Explore Knits and Fibers, you know the battleground I am talking about. So these first came out 2 years ago, maybe a little more than that. And it was when Allie of Explore Knits and Fibers joined in on Kate of Red Door Fiber Studios' ACOTAR collection, and actually Robin of Teeny Button Studios also did a guest colorway in that same collection. So the way that it worked is that Kate from Red Door Fiber Studios had this main collection with lots of colors. We will get to that soon. And then she partnered with Robin of Teeny Button Studios, who also did a colorway that was based on ACOTAR, and Allie of Explore Knits and Fibers, who did a colorway as well. Allie did 2 colorways, and I think it's a variegated and a tonal, and I think Robin of Teeny Button Studios did the same thing. So, Allie, being the wizard that she is with color, created this incredible color. Court of Dreams as well is also one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen in my entire life. And that's partly why I made it for my engagement sweater, which I'll put a picture here in case I haven't already of that. I actually have a picture higher up on my bookshelf right here of that sweater, of our engagement photo shoot where I am wearing that sweater, and Doyle is wearing a sweater that I knit for him as well. But let me tell you the story of getting this yarn. And yes, I know the sun is directly in my eyes right now. It's okay, I'll be fine, and I hope it doesn't look too bad on the video. So the first time that this colorway went live, I was on the site at 9:00 p.m. my time. It was earlier for them because Explore Knits and Fibers is based in Colorado, and I'm on the east coast of Canada. I was there at 9:00, and I put in what I wanted to purchase, and I went to hit checkout. And everything that I wanted to get said, not available, not available, not available. Every time I would downgrade to just one less skein, not available, not available. At 9:01, everything was sold out. And I mean every single skein of those 2 colors was sold out. You could not get any of it. I swear I just bawled. I did not know what to do. I was so disappointed because that was yarn at the time, I didn't know how big ACOTAR was. I had found it on my own through Goodreads. I hadn't found it through Book Talk. I didn't even know Book Talk was a thing then. And I didn't know how much overlap there was between book girlies and yarn girlies. But I was devastated. And I really did cry that night of not being able to find that yarn. And I, like a few other people probably, or many people probably, I posted a story in Instagram, or I messaged Allie or something. I forget what I did. And I just like poured my heart out. I just said how gutted I was. And I wanted that yarn so badly. And I wanted it to make this, and this. And like, I poured my heart out because I was just so upset. And clearly a lot of people did that because Allie brought the yarn back. Thinking about it now, I do hope her choice to do another round of these colorways did not negatively impact her mental health. I do remember her doing a story on Instagram or a live or something like that shortly after the first collection, or maybe it was after the second collection, or maybe after a different collection, talking about how much it hurt her to hear from people that they missed their chance to get her yarn, that they got carjacked and all that stuff. And, you know, I felt kind of guilty because I felt like I was part of that problem. I think now she is a bigger operation. She has more support. She's able to do larger collections, and I don't think she has as much of a problem like that anymore. So, and I do understand that hand dyers, especially ones that are kind of like riding that boundary between being a small one-person operation or a small three-person operation to having a whole team of people to help you out, is a really rough place for a dyer to be, because you want to provide product for people, but you also don't want to take on more than you are capable of doing and then disappoint people by not being able to supply the product. So it's a very delicate line, and you know, it made me reassess how I interact with dyers online when it comes to collections selling out and that type of thing. And it really made me rethink how I should approach those situations, and I have learned from that. But let's talk about this yarn now that I've gotten all the heavy stuff out of the way. So to the stars who listen, the most gorgeous tonal teal yarn you have ever seen in your life. And I have a very exciting pattern to make with these yarns. Funny enough, it's originally a Harry Potter pattern. But as I have spoken about on my podcast and in my other videos before, I no longer support Harry Potter. I vehemently disagree with J.K. Rowling's horrible, horrible views. I support my friends in the trans community, everything like that. So I no longer support Harry Potter. But I had this pattern in my stash, and it's a pattern from a book, and it's a size and closet pattern, and the colorwork chart is done in a chart. Like, it's not just written out instructions, it's actually charted out. And I, being very good at using Excel for colorwork patterns, decided to take that pattern and modify it to make it something not Harry Potter. Because the sweater is Hermione's time turner sweater. So essentially, it is a swath of colorwork across the chest that has mainly just like swirls and stars, and then the time turner in one section. So I've actually reworked this colorwork into being a mountain with 3 stars to represent Ramil, the sacred mountain in Akatar. So I used my yarn as an inspiration to rework this Harry Potter pattern into a pattern that more aligns with my views. And I'm, sorry for that motorcycle that just went by. That was really loud. So I am really, really excited to make this sweater, and I love my Court of Dreams sweater so much, my Estrella sweater that has all of that beautiful color work. And I used a discontinued yarn as the secondary color. It was Vanna's Glamour, and I think the color was Diamond. It was white with a silver lame thread, I think, with it. Well, I have more of that yarn, and I have just enough, I think, to make this pattern. But it's not diamond. It's gold. So I have some of this yarn left over. It might only be like maybe 1 skein that's been split up into these 3 balls. But it is so beautiful against this dark teal. And I think it's going to look so beautiful in that colorwork pattern. I just haven't made it yet. It's going to be a fingering weight one, so it's going to take me a while. It's going to be a labor of love, but it's going to be so worth it in the end. And in case you're wondering, the second time that I went to try and buy this yarn, I was checked out by 9:01 and it was sold out by 9:05. So, Alley of Explorer Knits and Fibers is really, really popular. Before we get to the heavy hitter of this section, I have one more single skein to show you. This is from Bumblebee Acres Fiber Farm. This is their Squishy DK base, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it is 245 yards per 100 grams. And this is her As Real Shadow Singer colorway. So this, of course, is our favorite strong silent type that has been dyed up in these gorgeous colors. There is, of course, the really, really strong blue, but there's also a little bit of gray. There's black, of course, but then down here it's almost more of like a chocolate brown, like a very deep chocolate, but still chocolate. And I think this is such a fun color. When I bought this, I expected to make a hat, but this might surprise a lot of you, especially if you've been here for a while. I might try and make socks with this. I know it sounds crazy because I'm not a sock knitter. I have knit one pair of socks and one pair of slipper socks in my entire 10 years of knitting, and they were both for my husband. The socks were too small, the slipper socks were too big, but I'm thinking I might want to try and make a pair of socks probably for myself, and I'm going to use a pattern that is made by this yarn dyer. And it uses this exact yarn base. And it's a pair of ribbed socks. So I don't actually remember the name of the pattern, but I'll put it here. But I'm going to use this yarn to try and make those exact socks. And I think what I want to do is like split my yarn in half because I'm pretty sure they're toe-up socks. If they're not, I might change it to be toe-up socks because I probably just want to use however much of this yarn that I have. And I will just use up every scrap. I'll have the two balls separated, so I'll have one for each sock. And I'm willing to give it a whirl. I'm willing to try again. I can't guarantee that I will become a sock knitter, but I at least want to try. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, my Red Door Fiber Studios yarn collection. This is not all of it. I did a really big order of Kate's ACOTAR collection, and now that I know more about her and her dyeing style and her preferences for not bringing back colorways, or if she does bring them back, she totally reworks them, I'm so glad I bought enough of what I wanted from that initial order because some of these yarns are never going to be available the way that they are right now, and I feel incredibly lucky to have gotten the ones that matter to me, and at least in one case, to have already made something with them. So, let me talk you through some of these yarns. So when Kate did this collection, she did a variegated and a tonal color for every one of the main characters. And I have to admit, for the most part, they were on the money. I was really only disappointed with Farah's color. Now, I love her tonal. Her tonal is beautiful. But I really didn't like her variegated, and I feel like it's a me issue, not a color issue, because Kate loves ACOTAR, and Kate really went through all of the books, picking up on all the little tidbits of each person's character. She has like sticky notes galore in the books. But to me, the colorway for Farah's variegated color reminds me of black raspberry cheesecake ice cream, which is very popular here in Nova Scotia. I'm not sure if it's popular in other places of the world, but when I saw Farah's color, that's all I could think about. And I thought, I love that ice cream, but I don't think I want a yarn dyed based on that ice cream. And that's all I could think about. I couldn't think about Farah. But I do love her tonal, which is Cursebreaker. Now, I actually didn't get these tweed yarns at the same time that I got my initial order. I ended up getting these when Kate had some extras, because the thing with the ACOTAR pre-order is that was the largest amount of yarn that I'd ever purchased. It was the most expensive yarn order that I'd ever made. The price still kind of boggles my mind, but it's based on like what I bought and how much I needed to buy. But I went back for more after I did my first order. So the collection, I think, went live at like 8 p.m. my time. And I bought the Resand colorways. I got mostly the tonal, and then I got a couple of the variegated. So I bought those to make a hoodie for Doyle, which I'll pop a picture right here. And I wanted to get enough of the Tamlin and Lucian colors in order to do a color fade cardi, which is an Andrea Mowry pattern. But after I saw how much the yarn just for Doyle sweater cost, which was also DK weight yarn, I could not justify spending the same amount for a cardigan for myself to also have those variegated colors. Part of me does kind of wish that I'd still gone with my original plan because, as you can tell, I still have these yarns in my stash. They haven't been used yet. So these are the Tamlin and Lucian colors. The Tamlin colors are Insignificant Human is the green, and Thorns and All is the variegated. And you'll notice that these are from Kate's old labels that have the red door with her old dog who sadly passed away and her cat. And these blend so beautifully together. Then there's the Lucian colors, which are Play the Fox and Cauldron Boil Me, which if you know what that's from, it's, oh my gosh, Lucian says that all the time. And again, the colors blend so beautifully together. But not only do the variegateds and the tonals go well together, they blend into the most beautiful fade. And these to me look close enough that I wouldn't even stripe. I would just go from one color to the next, to the next, to the next. Even with the two variegateds, they are so similar. So these yarns are all on Kate's classic fingering base, which is 100% superwash merino, 436 yards per 100 grams. Now, I don't even think she carries this base anymore, so you might not even still be able to get it. But I need help finding a pattern for these because I know for sure I want to make a faded sweater. And I think I have to use them single in order to get a size that will fit me, because that's only about 872 yards if I double them up. Which, to be fair, I could make like a t-shirt with that, or I could make something with like 3/4 length sleeves, but I don't like 3/4 length sleeves. So please help a girl out. Give me your best suggestion for a fade sweater in the comments below. I have looked at a couple. I've made the So Faded by Andrea Mowry before, and I was thinking of making the one by Jessie Maid. I think it's like Cozy Classic Raglan V-neck, which is not actually a faded pattern, but I figured I could fade the yarns with this. But please give me some suggestions in the comments of some fade sweater patterns that you think would go well with this yarn. Now, because the way Kate did this collection, each ACOTAR character got a variegated and a tonal color, I had an interesting problem with limiting which ones I bought, because on the one hand, I wanted to buy the colors that I liked the look of, Lucian and Tamlin. Lucian's great. Tamlin, meh. But I loved his colorway so much. And I remember talking to Kate about that because he had the best colorway, one of the best colorways that she made, but she understood that she was using that for a character that, you know, isn't well liked. But she loved that juxtaposition. But then I also wanted to buy colorways based on my favorite characters. So I limited myself buying yarn, like, I bought the colors that I wanted, but when it came to buying the yarn based on my favorite characters, I stuck with one, my absolute favorite character, who is not Farah or Reese. And that is Moore. Moore is my favorite ACOTAR character. I love her so much. I love her backstory. I'm excited for what her future could hold. But these are her two colors. Her variegated is To Hell with a Reputation, and her tonal is You're Free, which is, oh, this is the epitome of Moore, these two colors. Not just like the colors, but also the names of the colorways. And I love them together. So I bought these not knowing what I was going to do with them, but I just bought the classic fingering because I was just trying to get as much yardage as I could get without breaking the bank. And I ended up just buying the fingering, not knowing what I was going to do with them. But then I found a pattern called the Broadleaf Slouch by woolen pine designs, and it used similar colorways. So I thought to myself that I would use the yellow as the contrasting brioche on the brim, and then the variegated for the rest of the hat, and hold a red mohair or alpaca lace with it to sort of make it redder. I don't want to do that anymore because I really feel like that's not going to use this yarn to its highest potential. Now I want to do something striped with them, and probably an accessory, most likely of the neck variety, either scarf, shawl, cowl, not quite sure. But all I know is these colors have to be used together because these are Moore's colors, and they just need to go together because there's beautiful little bits of golden yellow in the variegated that will work so nicely with this gold. And these are for my favorite character. So I went back to buy the Moore colorway the morning after this collection went live because Kate promised to leave it open for 12 hours, I think. And I bought the Moore colorways like in the 10th or 11th hour. And I remember Kate just being blindsided by the amount of love for this collection and the amount of orders that came in. I still think it's her largest collection to date because after this collection, she decided to change her model of pre-order collections. She no longer has them open for a set amount of time, and then she'll give you the turnaround time afterwards, because I believe the Akatar colors took at least 6 months to get everyone's orders out. Mine, I think, was close to 5 or 6 months from when I ordered it. It was worth the wait, though. I'm going to be honest. It was worth the wait. But I think because she had to do so many orders, that made her change her style of doing pre-orders. And I think it also influenced why she doesn't like to bring back old colorways unless she's going to rework them and find a new way to do them. So after the Akatar collection happened, the pre-order, there were a few times where Kate had some in-stock yarn to share. And I'm going to be honest, I fell prey to one of those orders. And I ordered it before my Akatar collection arrived, so these came with my pre-ordered yarn. But I still had that problem of I wanted to buy yarn that I loved the color of. I also wanted to buy it for the character. And I ended up buying these two tweed yarns. The first of which is Farah's colorway, her tonal, which is Curse Breaker. And Azriel's tonal colorway, Truth Teller. And again, I think these yarns look beautiful together. I think they both play on this like moody jewel tone vibe. I really think that they really work so well together. It's almost like this is a female version and this is a male version of like this really beautiful jewel tone. And I'm really into using them together. I thought I was going to make the Excuse Me cowl by Stephen West. I'm not big into his patterns though. They're just a little too much for me. They're not my style. I understand why so many people like them, especially people who want to create really fun and exciting accessories and use up beautiful one-of-a-kind skeins of yarn that they have. But I just don't know if I still want to do that cowl with these or if I want to try something different. Maybe some color work with these. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to use them for, but I think I'm going to use them together. I think they'll be absolutely beautiful. If I don't end up deciding to use them together, I'll probably use them for two hats, one for me and one for Doyle. And that concludes this episode of my stash tour. This was episode 3, Hand-Dyed Yarns, Moody Jewels. Thank you so much for watching this all the way through, and if you want to be on the lookout for the next episode of my stash tour, subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon to be notified when next week's video comes out. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment below. Let me know which of these yarns was your favorite. If you would like to give me a tip, I have my Ravelry wish list linked below. If you wanted to give me a little tip, you could buy me a pattern. I'd really appreciate it, but there's no pressure. It's only if you want to. I hope you all take care and happy knitting!